Hello everyone and welcome to a new episode of the Kiln Restaking Rendez-Vous. Today we have Georgi Koreli from Hinkal. Georgi, how are you doing today?
Thanks for having me. Doing well. How about you?
I'm doing great. First week of the new year, very exciting. Lots of things are coming in crypto for this year, so it's definitely a big year, I think. Um, Georgi, to kick things off, could you introduce yourself and tell us a bit like how you ended up working in blockchain?
Yeah, sure. So I started my career as a professional wrestler. I was twice world champion in sambo wrestling before I moved to a professional business career. Then I worked 5 years in investment banking. Then I moved to the US and did my MBA and a master's at Stanford. And while at Stanford in 2021, actually most of the startups became crypto startups. So it was a huge pivot, DeFi summer, super excitement. Unfortunately, most of them then became AI startups. But I was one of the few startups that stick with crypto. And part of the reason was because we got lucky with the idea that we picked. We initially started working on identity. And then like when actually Tornado Cash happened, we realized that, the premise of crypto is to substitute traditional financial rails. And with this premise, you cannot really have it fulfilled with full privacy of on-chain, full transparency of on-chain data. So fast forward now 2.5 years, we have built the biggest privacy layer, and it became very much needed solution.
Great. So yeah, can you talk a bit about like this origin story of Hinkal, how you started with identity and start and why you moved to privacy? Can you talk a bit deeper about like what is your mission at Hinkal?
Yeah, so initially we were in identity space because before we were building in Web2 and it was consumer social, so we were aggregating some data about different people. So we thought if we put this data in one identity on chain, right, and shield it, so this can become reusable attestation for certain things, and also we can offer this solution to employers. And then what we realized that it's very hard to monetize in crypto, and actually, it was not infrastructure solution that was needed. And we decided, okay, let's kill what we worked before, and let's understand what we believe in. And back then, I was hosting a lot of famous tech people. I launched this community, Silicon Valley Icons, and I was able to really speak to all the leaders in the space and understand how they see the future. And what was straightforward for me that this premise of on-chain rails for finance should be fulfilled, and this is unavoidable mission of crypto. So how can we be the core infrastructure for to enable this on the public blockchains? And that was our mission, right? So we are enabling all Web2 institutions, enterprises, individuals to move to blockchains without exposing the most crucial thing that they have, their financial data.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So let's talk a bit about privacy. Could you give us like kind of like a history lesson of like privacy in public blockchains? You mentioned Tornado Cash, and I think pretty much everybody knows like what happened there, like what were the ins and outs. I think it's really interesting to like study like the history of like such a topic to understand like where we're going in the future. So I would love to have your take there.
hmm Yeah, so the short stint in crypto history of privacy is that it started with like mostly less legit solutions, I would say, with mixers in Bitcoin mostly. And then the idea was that you can send certain tokens, these mixers basically are smart contracts, and they receive these tokens and then they give you output. So basically it removes the trace from point A to point B. And so then we saw some sophistication of privacy with solutions such as Zcash, and later on Tornado Cash. Like afterwards, it was Railgun, and here privacy finally moved to new chains and also like as a separate chain, separate coin in terms of Zcash. But ultimately, privacy should have like few different variations, right? Because you don't want to move to completely new coin or chain and sacrifice what you have now in the wallet, right? So the question was, is there a way to enable and embed privacy in the current user experience of these crypto enthusiasts and new people coming on chain, right? Before, because if you offer them, okay, like come on chain, you have banking account. Now this banking account becomes public for everyone. So it's pretty bad value proposition, even if you offer all advantages of blockchains. So the world was moving to this step. Then we had dApps. So after Zcash, right, we had Tornado Cash. Tornado Cash had limitations. Limitation was that you would only deposit like point one, like same numbers to make sure anonymity set uh, has only this number. So you no one can really understand who is withdrawing because it's 0.11. I think it was 100,000 ETH. And it was very limited solution, right? Because it's it limits you. You have to really split your account in hundreds of different deposits. You have to deposit after you have to wait, and then you withdraw. So it sacrifices capital efficiency. It sacrifices gas because you have to split your account, and it sacrifices user experience because you don't have this embed and you have to have only ETH here. So then we had that next generation that Vitalik called Privacy 2.0, and he mentioned two protocols there. It was Railgun and Nocturne. So Nocturne, unfortunately, halted. So they stopped this. They closed, or I think they actually left the project. And Railgun is still here in the market. But in what the next generation was, okay, there is a dApp. You deposit your assets inside the dApp. It functions similar to wallet, but it is actually dysfunctional because you cannot do almost anything except one or two functions. You can do swaps or you can do staking. And for staking, I think they had BFI, so it was different, right? It was like aggregate staking and accumulation of rewards. So it was quite limited because still here you sacrifice capital efficiency for the privacy, and you have to keep these assets in the shielded pool with limited functionality. And initially, when we launched Hinkal, our solution was similar to this. So it was shielded pool, but we required all compliance. So it was like fully KYC, AML, shielded pool, mostly tailored institutions, but fully self-serve as well. And but with more functions. So we allowed to do Pendle, yield trading, swaps on Uniswap, 1-inch orders, LP on Curve, staking convex, beefy Lido. So basically our customers were like our liquid funds, and they were asking us, Georgi, can you add this function? And then we were making sure they can add this function. They have certification function where they can verify their transactions and also share to auditors. So basically we were building very sophisticated version of this middle layer that sits between the wallet and the dApps. And our next iteration that we are preparing right now is fully private composable wallet. So it's wallet like Phantom that sits in your browser as extension and is fully private. So you can interact with any dApp in full privacy.
Super impressive. We'll go a bit deeper into your roadmap in a second. But I would like to dive a bit deeper into like your shared privacy network, and how do you think they differentiate with other initiatives in the DeFi space. You did mention that like your solution requires a KYC. Tornado Cash did not require KYC, but it had a function to let the user prove that he or she was in compliance. What is your vision there, and what do you think like privacy protocols? What type of framework you think they should do, and do you think it makes sense? to have like a product like that where anybody could use a privacy protocol and just like assume that they are compliant?
Mhm. Yeah, so first of all, what we learned that compliance is a big friction, right? So most of crypto users don't want to attach their identity to any wallets, right? And if you tell them now, there is a chance that, somehow it's touched, then it's a big, uh, it's a big restriction that they don't want to take. Right? And since then, since we started, we were thinking, okay, how can we simplify this user experience? Initially, what we did is we introduced privacy preserving KYC. So there are a couple of solutions. One, the most famous is ZKMe. And what they allow is you prove in a ZK way that you belong to the subset of KYC individuals without actually revealing who you are. And in this way, you're proving compliance, but at the same time, your data is not stored anywhere. So that was the first iteration of compliance tools that we introduced that are privacy preserving. But users don't read, so it's, you need a lot of explanation to make sure, they trust that there is no data actually leaked anywhere in the centralized database. And the second solution that we introduced recently is reusable attestations from centralized exchanges. And this is even easier now since you don't need to provide any data. What you do, you just log in your Coinbase or Binance account. We have 10 exchanges. And then you prove that you have this account. And with you generate ZK proof, we accept the ZK proof, and that's it, right? And then the data is not stored anywhere. And we are using Reclaim for this solution. So, it became easier. So, but with Tornado Cash, I think, of course, you can give users to prove compliance. But the question is, if government comes to you, they will ask, what did you do to prevent these users from accessing the protocol, to prevent the worst users from and criminals from accessing? And if there is no clear answer and you didn't do your best to do it, you basically qualify for a bad actor as well.
That makes a lot of sense. Let's move on to like cross-chain privacy. One thing that's very interesting with Hinkal is that you actually enable uh, privacy in like multiple different blockchains. Can you talk a bit about like how you enable that without fragmenting the liquidity of your shilling pools?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the way we enabled is through the use of cross-chain services. So the problem is if you have shielded pool on Ethereum and let's say now it's 14 million, you have anonymity pretty much for every transaction. Like 99% of transactions are covered. As long as this transaction is below 1.4 million with 10% anonymity set, it's sufficiently covered. But then if you have, let's say, a new chain and it is, let's have Optimism as an example. And Optimism has only 100K shielded pool. How would you have privacy for your 1 million transaction that you want to do on Optimism if your deposit is 10 times higher than the size of shielded pool? Of course, it's a high risk for de-anonymization. And the way you can solve it is you can deposit assets to Ethereum shielded pool. Use cross-chain communication service to move from Ethereum to Optimism shielded pool. And then Optimism shielded pool will have 1.1 million, but no one will understand who is this depositor for 1 million shielded pool because Optimism shielded pool inherits anonymity set of Ethereum.
Got it. And does it also so you use the example of like an L2? Could it work with like a pool that goes from Ethereum to Sui, for example?
Yeah, same to Sui, same to Solana, same to other chains. Now we are on EVM, but there is no, as long as there is ZK library on the chain, there are no limitations for expansion.
Got it. Let's talk a bit now about like your users. So we talk a bit about like how retail are potentially using privacy solutions. Uh, who are your users today, and what are like the pain points that you mainly address? Like, who are the people that are like willing to pay extra on public blockchains for privacy?
Mhm. Yeah, so first of all, on the extra, there's not much extra except Ethereum, right? Ethereum is still extra because of proof generation, but for all other chains, the extra is very negligible. So it's, very unnoticeable in this case. So it's kind of now like embedded, right, in your user experience with no extra cost. So from the user standpoint, our current users are mostly liquid funds, and now we start seeing more and more usage on the payment side. So we have built the SDK, and now we are basically integrating, expanding this SDK to payments. One of our first customers for payments is Request Network. It's also a French company, and they're enabling payments, like private payments with our solution. So plus, we have a couple customers that we are not yet announcing, also on the private vesting side, on the payroll side. So it seems that payments are really taking off this year in two different ways. It's payrolls, global payrolls coming on chain. And second is B2B payments are about to start hitting the high numbers.
Go. Let's talk a bit about the technical innovations with Hinkal. Could you delve a bit into like the technical aspects of the user of zk snarks and how they enhance transaction privacy on the platform?
Yeah, so the way privacy works is it's a smart contract. Smart contract has a lot of addresses, right? By addresses, I mean it's UTXOs. And each user has his own address inside the smart contract. At the time of a transaction, he generates zero knowledge proof, proving that he owns certain share of smart contract, and also generates stealth address. A stealth address is used to reimburse the user in case there is a gap between ZK proof and transaction, like some transaction cost changes. This enables capital efficiency of the user because otherwise you're losing some money, so you have to pay a certain fee. And after that, you pass the ZK proof to Relayer, and Relayers execute transactions on chain, and that's basically the structure, right? For all users, same Relayers and smart contract appears on chain, while users maintain full self custody. And that's what was one of the actual reasons why we use Symbiotic, right, for this Relayer decentralization.
Yeah, yeah, we'll move on to like symbiotic in a quick second, but I just want to ask you a bit about like what is the user experience today for users of Hinkle? Like, let's say like I have a liquid fund and I want to do a whole bunch of activity on chain. I want to be totally anonymous. What is the user journey?
The journey is you open up map.hinkle.pro, you create private address, and then private address derives from your signature. And with this private address, it becomes your additional layer of identity, basically. That you unlock with your public EOA. So you can use any institutional wallet, and your institutional wallet is a key to your private wallet. And with this private wallet, you have your assets on a shielded pool, so you can do any transaction that we support on the supported chains, and they don't appear on chain. Also, they don't appear for your LPs, right? So one of the problems for liquid funds is that they receive money from their LPs and they manage the wallets. But if LPs can watch the wallets all the time, it's very hard to grow AUM because otherwise, like, there is not incentive to pay you, right? So this is crucial, actually, solutions for every type of liquid fund, just like also not only from a market standpoint, but also from the LP standpoint.
Got it. Makes sense. Now let's go back to what you're saying about symbiotic, decentralizing the relay on network. Can you talk a bit about like your journey to, I guess like building this privacy protocol and understanding that like you would need to decentralize specific processes and choosing symbiotic as the shared security network to operate all of that?
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, what we did is we started HETH, right? So when we were building the shared privacy framework, one of the core primitive there was launching ETH-based token that enables privacy for the shielded pool. So what means that any user can provide ETH. This ETH provide privacy to other users, and in exchange, they receive fees and points. So that was basic framework, and we launched Curve Pool, we launched Spectra, a balancer, few more pools to make sure that this framework is built, and we have decent number of users actually providing their ETH. So now the second question is, okay, we have this HETH, right? And we have Relayer. Relayer is still, even though relayers won't be able to do transaction, right? Or just to somehow miss money. So there is no problem of losing money. The problem is, if Relayer is down, users won't be able to do transactions on external dApps on full privacy. So it's kind of critical, um, but not as critical as losing money. So that's a good side of it. So we were always thinking how we can enable more relayers to join in more permissionless way. And Symbiotic, then, we had a conversation with Symbiotic, and we realized that we can actually use our HETH to secure our own relayers. And this provides additional utility for HEs, as well as, allows us to solve this problem.
Makes sense. So it was really like the framework that enables like any types of assets that seduced you in the first manner. Do you envision like any other collateral type, or you want to stick with HETH?
For us, it would be HEs and our native token. So um, Symbiotic enables this framework where you have, balanced approach. And now it's like it will be from the start, it will be only HE since we don't have token. But once we launch token, it will be combination of two.
Got it. And so that's the collateral part. Uh, exactly like how difficult is the job of a relayer? I guess this question is a bit selfish for Kiln, but we always want to know like exactly like how tedious can it be to run a network. So I guess my question to you is, uh, do you have some information around the type of hardware requirements that Kiln might be like might need to prepare, and like the type of cost of running such operations?
Now we are running relayers ourselves, right? And it's quite straightforward process that requires, one client basically. And but with Symbiotic, there should be also, slashing conditions to make sure. So I think that the most complicated side of it is, what are the slashing conditions? What should be the downtime for this slashing? What should be the size of slashing? I think, there are just way more questions that we need to answer. We are still, we kind of did a lot of work, but there's more work done to really clarify all these questions.
Yeah, that was actually my next question. If you had already thought about slashing the kind of behaviors you wanted to enforce, like do you want to have? I mean, I guess you already kind of answered, but like, do you want slashing to be straightforward, or do you want it to be a bit modular? Like, for example, like on some chains, you only get slashed if you're double signed. If you double sign on some chains, you can even slash for downtime. Do you already have a vision there?
Yeah, for us, the core here is downtime, right? So we want restaking, slashing only for downtime, and that's a core primitive that we are building.
Let's scale. Can you also talk a bit about the timeline for launch? When do you expect the symbiotic network to be live? Do you have a timeline for testnet maybe before? Yeah,
So we did some work on integrations before the launch, like in November. So now, now all our efforts are focused on private wallet. And then once we finish this integration, we will get back to symbiotic integration. So I'd assume that we will spend February working on it.
got it. Exciting. And apart from the composable wallet, are there like other items in your roadmap that you're excited about that you want to share?
Yeah, so privacy is multifaceted problem, right? So it's the major question that we were answering for the past, for the past 2 years is how we can really embed in the experience of the user without user noticing that this is privacy, but having privacy by default. And with this, what we have now is, this, composable wallet that sits in your as a browser extension, enables full data privacy and everything. But then there are also trade-offs. So the trade-off is this is a smart contract wallet. How can you enable deposit on it? And we are enabling this with, EOA integration where you can share fresh EOA with the users, and then you basically transfer these assets from EOAs to your shielded to your private address, right? That's the second thing. Like sorting is new chains, right? So we see that Solana is picking up, and some of our customers started asking when we will launch on Sol. And that will be one of the probably complicated integrations because it's completely different language of programming, structure of the chain, right? So we'll need to build the shielded pool there to enable full user experience. Also, new chains such as Monad, I think are picking up and become really interesting for capital allocators. So our roadmap is mostly, making this solution as composable and as embedded. Second, making as secure as possible, and then security is, how we can really enable also MPC or multi-sig structure, right? So that's one of our more like plans in the roadmap. Yeah, so like composability, security, and launching new chains. You're muted.
Nice catch, thank you. Sorry, I was saying, very interesting. I'll definitely be a user of your solutions in the future. I like to end this by just talking about like your vision for privacy on public blockchain. First and foremost, like I guess like what is your vision for like the future of DeFi privacy? Do you think that in the future like privacy will be a primitive for any types of users in crypto, and like public blockchains will become like almost like fully anonymized behind like a KYC walls? And also like what is your vision? What is the, I guess like the vision of like the future user journey when it comes to privacy on public blockchains?
Mhm. Yeah, so my vision of privacy is that privacy should be built like a wallet and not as a separate chain. And we saw it recently with few chain launches that they have very limited activity since people need to move their assets there, and that's not the best solution. And second, that actually public wallets, I think we will see a lot of drama with public wallets next year or a year after. We see this adoption happening, BlackRock, Stripe, and all of them embracing crypto. But one of the biggest problems is that the users will see that, they are going to crypto from their private banking accounts and becoming completely naked. So anyone can see how much assets they have, all counterparties, all competitors. But they don't know about it because they don't pay attention. So they will realize based on, some probably negative experiences that this is happening, and the only viable solution will be private wallets on public chains. right? So we really pioneering this category and the solution, and super excited because that's the unavoidable path to real privacy and to adoption of crypto as financial rails.
Super interesting. So basically, like, you would say like that you are like bearish on private, fully private chains, but more like interested in privacy solutions on public chains.
Not even privacy solutions, like just embedded solutions that don't really differ from the user experience of current users of chains. Right, so the highest security of chains still is EVM. Right, so if like all traditional folks like consider EVM as a first step into crypto, right? If they have EVM, they want to have now privacy since they move assets and they don't realize that they are fully public. But private chains are complicated now, and people are not excited about them because it's very hard to build, right? Like they need to, even developers need to need to know a lot of primitives, how to build privacy preserving, and always keep this in mind. Why would you need this experience if you can enable this on a public chain without increasing risk?
It makes sense. Final question for me. Outside of privacy, like, what is the number one thing you're excited about in crypto for the year to come?
Yeah, I'm super excited about chain abstraction because I see that wallets started actually abstracting chains, and now you can see in one wallet just different assets on different chains. And I think the next step for this is completely abstract the chain so you don't feel where you are. And I was recently reading one of the articles about FET, like about the end of FET protocol thesis. And that's what I'm excited the most because switching costs are becoming very negligible between chains. All the chains are the same. All the dApps become chains. And we saw this, every restaking, every like every dApp protocol becomes a chain because it just gives them higher FDV. And I don't think that's a great path for the future. So everyone is optimizing just for FDV because there's fat protocol thesis, and the values are critical ones, right? Something should trigger and end this, and I think this chain abstraction will definitely end this, and we will see this gradual like end of fat protocol thesis next year or so, or even this year, right? And it will be really coupled, bundled with chain abstraction. And finally, we will arrive to Fed wallet thesis.
Very, very interesting and very exciting. Perfect. Before we end this, Georgi, can you tell us a bit? Can you tell the audience a bit like how they can learn more about Hinkal? How can they get involved?
Mhm. Yeah, so app.hinkal.pro, that's our current solution. It's fully functional. You can become private, so no one can see your assets. So second is our Twitter. So my Twitter is Gegelos01. Our corporate Hinkal Twitter is Hinkal dot pro, Hinkal protocol. Yeah, please follow us. We have exciting roadmap. Use our wallets and become private as soon as possible.
So thank you, Georgie, so much for joining us. It was a great conversation. Really excited for the year ahead. Um, and for those listening to the podcast, please subscribe to listen to past episode and stay tuned for the next ones to come.
Thanks, Edgar. Appreciate your time, and it was great conversation.